So today I've got an email from, or it might have been a comment actually, from Teal Dragonfly. Hello, Teal Dragonfly. I was wondering if you could please make a video or blog post about finding life and purpose after anorexia and recovery. The one thing that's just holding me back from recovery, as my mind is literally consumed by food and exercise, is my purpose right now. I'm scared to let go because I don't know what I'll think about without it, or what I'll do with my life without anorexia. Did you know what you wanted to do with your life during recovery, or did you just embrace what you'd find new purposes as you recover? Thank you again so much for your videos. Well, no. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life after recovery, but I did know that I didn't want to do what I was currently doing, or I didn't want to be the way that I currently was. And so I think I mostly just focused on changing and just being brave. I am somebody who embraces change. I don't mind change. Even when I had anorexia, I could embrace change. And I think especially as I got too sick of it, I was just like, whatever the change is, it's got to be better. I was very obsessed with exercise, as many of you know. I actually worked in a gym as a personal trainer, which is not the best career choice for somebody with a restrictive eating disorder. But if you think about it from anorexia's point of view, it's absolutely the best career choice. And although I convinced myself and everybody around me that I just loved working in a gym, I think a part of me knew that that wasn't really true at all. It's actually so boring, you wouldn't believe it. And so there was a lot of resistance. That I put a lot of money into personal training qualifications. I put a lot of time into it. I'd done very well, actually. So there's a lot of resistance from that point of view. Of course, there was tons of resistance at the thought of not spending all day in the gym, not having an excuse to do that. But you know, you can bullshit yourself as much as you want. There's got to be a point when you just recognize the truth. And I think a part of me realized that these weren't my interests. They were my eating disorder's interests. And the real me, who seemed very distant away but was in there somewhere, was bored to shit with exercise and thinking about nothing but that all day. And so I think I just grabbed a hold of that bit. I didn't really have a plan. I think I was a little bit too depressed to really have much of a plan as such, or this like aspirations of this is what I'm going to do with myself. I was just really down and I was tired and hungry, and that's as far as my plan went, was just gonna fucking start eating. And so that's what I did, yeah, and quit my job as a personal trainer, which thank God, can't even imagine doing that now. But it's very difficult. So to the point of, well, what are you going to do? What's your brain going to do when you're not thinking about eating disorder stuff 24/7? And it's difficult. When you're in one mental state, it's very difficult to imagine what another mental state would be like. And an example that I always use is that when I was 10, I used to love swinging we had this little playing field near my house, and I would go and I would just swing on the swings. And I would spend every evening there swinging on the swings. And I would think about my parents inside the house doing grown-up things and not swinging on the swings. And I would often say to my mum, come and swing on the swings with me. And she'd always be busy with something else, or just not interested, or reading a book or something. And I used to think, God help me, if I ever am an adult and I'm that boring that I don't want to come and swing on the swings, I just never want to be like that. And I remember one day I promised myself, I was like, I'm never going to be like us boring adults. I'm always going to want to come and swing on the swings. Because I couldn't imagine not wanting to do that. I couldn't imagine wanting to sit down and talk to my friends like my mum used to do in the kitchen, instead of coming out and swinging on the swings. That just seemed like just the most boring thing I could think of. And adults are so boring, and I would hate to be like that. And I couldn't imagine it, and I didn't want to grow up. Because I didn't want to ever not want to swing on the swings. And it's a bit like when I was 10 as well, and then, you know, you'd see the older girls and they'd be all cooing over boys, and I'd be like, ew, God, that's disgusting. I'm never gonna like boys. I'm never gonna like have a boyfriend and all these things. And at 10, I was very adamant that those things were true. But then, of course, you change, and your mental state changes as you grow up. And now, I have to admit, I can't even think about the last time I swung on a swing. And I would much rather sit in and drink a glass of wine with my friends in the evening than swing on the swing. So that's an example of like when you're in one situation, 10-year-old girl, or wants to do a swing on the swings, can't imagine what it would be like to be so boring and not doing that. And then when you're in the other situation, you're like, I really enjoy doing this. Why would I ever want to just swing on the swings? Like, I'd be bored of doing that after 2 seconds. So, I don't know if that's a particularly good way of explaining what I'm trying to explain. But the thing is it's difficult when you're in one situation and one mental state to imagine that you'd enjoy being in another situation, another mental state. And I do quite like my husband, and I'm married, and so I evidently did get into boys at some stage as well. And whether boys or girls are your preference, then I think that you'll find that, you know, there's a different state. Your brain is in a different state when you're like 10 years old than when you're 15 years old, around that sort of thing. And so you just got to think about all of the things in your life where you've been at a certain stage in life and you thought, this is it. I never want to change. I just love being like this. And then you change and you get to the change stage in life and you go, God, I can't imagine being back there anymore. And so that's a bit what it's like. It's when you get to that change state, when you recover, I can't imagine how boring it would be to think about food and exercise all day. I can't even if I tried to make myself do it, I'd probably just last about 20 seconds thinking about food before I was so bored that I had to think about something else. So, well, I could think about food for hours when I was restricting, when I had anorexia. So it's I guess you just don't need to worry about it. Look, you will change and you will enjoy, your brain will change and your brain won't be obsessed with food and exercise anymore, and you'll enjoy not being obsessed with food and exercise anymore. Your brain is currently obsessed with food and exercise because it needs to be. And when it doesn't need to be anymore, it won't do that and you won't miss it. Absolutely, that is one thing I can tell you, you won't miss it. And you don't have to worry about what's going to fill your brain either, because that will take care of itself. Other interesting things will come into your life and you'll realize that those things are so much more interesting than thinking about food and exercise the whole time. You've got this. Just get on with it and do it.